there's a billion people growing up. How you would win it, you always say, I don't know how, but you won it. And that's how I survived through the Auschwitz lineup. I got past the first inspection, which was to the right to go with the man. In addition, some friend of my dad said, don't walk with him, don't stand with him, because if you stand with him, they made a point to separate the kids from their parents, and they would for sure take him away. So I was like in the back of my dad, and he passed, of course, he was a big guy, and so when it got to me, it was like, okay, over to the right, I made it. I made it to live another day. As we continued on, we were herded into what they were called places where you had to undress, and you were placed in such things as the showers. We were going to be de-liced, de-whatever, and put into uniforms and to go on to the true camp, which by the way was Birkenau. If you read about Birkenau in Auschwitz, so I was placed into that camp. My next adventure was once we undressed. Of course, I was just a boy. I was no longer camouflaged with clothes on, and so I was just a young kid, 11 years old. And they threw me to the left to die. I mean, in that second inspection. By a miracle, my dad, when we left Europe, all your worldly possessions were in diamonds, or here we have banking accounts, you have some cash, you have credit cards, your wealth is in many areas. In Europe, when you were, the value of anything was very, very depleted. So everything was converted to like diamonds. So if you had a few diamonds, you could negotiate that even before the war. But once we got into this inspection room, there were capos there. Capos were people who the Germans appointed to overlook us, to be our gods, so to speak. They were primarily people that converted to Nazism. They were either Ukrainians or people who never did like Jews, and they were in charge of us, and they would make sure that our stay there wasn't pleasant. But anyway, my dad ran over to one of them and gave him a diamond that he had with him, which they hid into the lapels. And he took him and he says, if you let my son go on this side, I have some other ones that I'll give you, which didn't mean anything to us anymore, because they were going to take it away anyhow. And so consequently, this guy, through some miracle, threw me on the right side and told me to lay in his clothes. There was a mountain of clothes laying there, and told me not to move until everybody left that transport, and that he would then let me go. And he kept his word. My dad gave him everything that he had so they wouldn't have to search and find it. And I got out of that situation, out of that predicament, and I was given clothes, which is a burlap uniform, striped uniform, with a little hat on, and some shoes that we call them Holland shoes, because they were high wooden shoes with a strap on it, and that consisted of our clothing. And with that, we marched to Birkenau, which is the real concentration camp, going through the gates and so on. Again, I cannot tell you. If I could take you, if there was a way that I could take you kids for 5 minutes to Auschwitz, just for 5 minutes, you would never have to be told stories by people like me or read the books or whatever. It would leave an indelible impression forever, as long as you live, and for your kids, and in the future. The minute we got in, all you heard was screaming and hollering and beating. And I just didn't know we just didn't know where to go, what to do, because I didn't understand German, and everything was in German. and they would holler out commands, and if you didn't respond, they hit you, and they kicked you, and some they even, would shoot and shoot them dead. The stench, pardon me, the stench of the area of burning flesh was so prevalent with the big, huge chimneys, bellowing smoke from the chimneys, while the crematoriums were where people were being burned, dead bodies burned, and this was going on day and night, 24 hours. People were just being eliminated, exterminated, and burned. We waited to be placed in barracks, which we were, and the conditions in the barracks were like barns with no windows, no heating, no toilets, and we were stacked. The bedding was stacked 4 high, that's 4 bunks high, with straw as a mattress, and we were given a very thin blanket to cover ourselves with. The toilet facilities consisted of a 55-gallon drum that was cut in half, and it was placed in the middle of the barrack. And if you needed to go, relieve yourself, you had to go all the way through the bunks to that barrel and somehow figure out by yourself how to relieve yourself. I don't have to tell you, and I'm sure you don't know this yet, and I hope you never do. But when you have dysentery, or if you are sick, or you have eaten something that didn't agree with you, and you know you have to run, you know you have to go, and you don't have much time to get there, you can imagine the consequences. Well,